Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're moving a bit beyond the usual self-help ideas. We're digging into some really interesting source material focused on spiritual self-mastery.
That's right. And the core theme running through it all is commitment.
But not commitment like, sticking to a diet. It's
Yeah,
defined in a pretty radical way here.
exactly. It's about aligning your entire reality, internal and external. Zero contradiction.
Zero contradiction. That sounds intense.
Well, that's the mission we're exploring today.
Okay.
Commitment as this state where your words, your thoughts, even your actions are all completely in line with your highest purpose. It requires, continuous vigilance, according to these sources.
And there's a specific vow at the heart of this discipline, right? Something that takes positive thinking and really elevates it.
Yes, a foundational principle. It's framed as a technology for creating your reality.
Okay, what is it?
The core statement is this: I will never say a thing about myself that I do not want to see realized. I will never say a thing about myself that I do not want to see realized. And notice the word vow. That's key.
Why a vow? How's that different from just like an affirmation?
It shifts the whole energy. A vow isn't just hoping or wishing. It's presented as an active contract, a contract with your own consciousness, and as the texts suggest, maybe even the universe itself.
So you're declaring authority over your own story.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We're taking charge of the narrative.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of that immediately, because this is where it gets really interesting for me. Why the intense focus specifically on words? Like, if I have a limiting thought, say, I doubt I can handle some big project, but I keep it inside, just thinking it, is that okay? Or is the danger really only when it, passes my lips?
Well, according to one of the key figures mentioned, Grandmaster Walksira of the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood, the danger is absolutely in the speaking, the utterance.
Grandmaster walks here.
Okay.
And the teaching is specific.
Very specific. Words are spells, and your thoughts are the intention behind those spells. That's a quote.
Words are spells. Wow.
Yeah. So if we take the Brotherhood, as these sources describe it, as this esoteric tradition focused on structured self-discipline, then their framework sees words as these pure energy delivery systems.
So speaking isn't just expressing a thought that already exists. The word itself is the invocation. Like, I'm broadcasting that intention.
Exactly. That's the model. Think of your thought as the raw energy, and the word, that's the form you give that energy. So the instant a negative self-limiting thought about your skills, your health, your future is actually spoken. You're actively giving that negativity power and presence in your reality. You're invoking it.
Okay, this immediately challenges something so common in our culture. Self-deprecating humor. We say things like, oh, I'm such an idiot, or I'm always late, just casually.
Right. Casual dismissal of self.
But under the rules of this vow, this commitment, we'd actually be manifesting being an idiot or being perpetually late.
That's a perfect example of how this framework applies it. Yes. The core of this spiritual commitment, as these texts lay it out, is controlling your own narrative. Controlling it against any external evidence, against circumstances, even against that impulse for self-deprecation.
So if I say, I'm just so overwhelmed right now.
You aren't just describing a feeling. According to this, you're essentially commanding that feeling of overwhelm to continue, to stick around.
You're making it part of your ongoing reality.
The vow requires you to stop that, to enforce that boundary right at the level of your speech.
This feels like more than just think positive. What makes it a spiritual technology, as you called it, and not just another self-help technique?
I think it's the discipline and the structure behind it. Motivational thinking often deals with symptoms feeling better temporarily. This commitment, as described, aims at the fundamental mechanism of how reality is created, or at least perceived and experienced.
So by taking the vow, you're claiming authority over your destiny.
You're asserting that the words you choose actively create the vibrations that shape your reality. It's not the other way around.
It's a claim of innate creative power.
Exactly.
Okay, that level of discipline, that kind of vigilance, it sounds like it would need a serious framework. And we know these sources mention specific steps, tools from this Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood. Mindful speech seems central.
Yes, they approach it very structurally. It starts with what they call the initiate degree.
The initiate degree, okay, first level.
Right. And the goal here isn't some complex magic. It's about learning that foundational alignment, how to get your thoughts and your words operating on the same frequency, what they call the frequency of divine truth.
Divine truth meaning aligned with your highest potential, your best self.
That seems to be the idea. Aligned with your most truthful, highest potential, yes.
And the tools mentioned for this stage are interesting. The ship in the wave. Metaphors, obviously, but what do they represent?
They seem to be powerful metaphors for personal responsibility and navigation. The ship represents your physical body, but maybe more specifically, your speech, the vessel. It carries your inner thoughts, your intentions, out into the world, into manifestation.
Right. So if the ship, my speech, is constantly broadcasting negativity or limitation about itself.
Then it compromises the whole journey, you see. It steers you off course.
Makes sense. And the wave?
The wave seems to represent the flow of consciousness, or maybe the chaos of external life, circumstances, opinions, fears. The initiate is taught to ride the wave using their intention, holding their purpose steady.
Instead of being tossed around by random events or other people's negativity.
Exactly, not getting swept away. The commitment, the vow, acts like the rudder.
Keeping the ship, your speech, from crashing on the rocks of self-doubt.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so once you grasp that initial concept, aligning speech with intention, maintaining it must be the real challenge. How do the next levels, the navigator and captain degrees, provide tools for sticking to this when doubt creeps in? Because it will.
Oh, absolutely. And they introduce stabilizing tools for that inevitability. Practical interventions. When doubt starts, or you feel tempted to speak negativity, you need immediate actions. They teach two main centering tools here, the anchor and the compass.
The anchor and the compass.
The anchor represents the breath, a physical tool. If a self-limiting thought pops up, ready to be spoken, the immediate physical response is a deep, centering breath. Drop the anchor. Halt the process before the word gets out.
Like a physical circuit breaker, stopping the spell before it's cast.
Precisely. That's the function. And then there's the compass.
Which is?
The rational mind. Once you've paused with the breath, you engage the compass. You use your rational mind to consciously steer your thoughts and impending words back towards your stated goal, your vow.
You check. Does this align with my highest intention?
Exactly. A quick mental check for alignment.
Then you get to the captain degree. That sounds like full self-leadership.
Right.
How does the captain stay aligned, especially in moments where there isn't time for that deliberate breath and rational check? Faster-paced situations.
Well, the captain stage implies these tools have become more internalized, more second nature. The captain relies more on intuition, inner vision, and importantly, conscience.
Conscience as a guide.
Yes. After practice, these become the immediate detectors. Your conscience, specifically, is framed as a kind of spiritual radar. It's meant to instantly sense when a word or statement about to leave your lips contradicts your highest goals.
Guiding you back to truth before the misaligned word can manifest.
That's the ideal, yes. Catching it before it takes root in your reality.
What's really striking is how this echoes concepts found elsewhere. It doesn't seem totally isolated to this one, maybe esoteric path. If the Brotherhood gives the how-to, the structure, where else does this idea of unifying the inner and outer appear in, say, ancient wisdom traditions?
Oh, it's definitely a universal theme. You see this concept of integration, making the inside match the outside, tropping up in many places. A really interesting connection is saying 106 in the Gospel of Thomas.
Gospel of Thomas. Okay. What does it say?
Well, Jesus is quoted as speaking about making the two one. Specifically, when you make the inside like the outside and the outside like the inside, and when you make the male and the female one and the same, then will you enter the kingdom.
Wow, make the inside like the outside. That's a very direct call for integration, isn't it? The inside being the thought, the intention, the outside being the expression, the word, the action.
Exactly. And spiritual progress, or entering the kingdom in that text terms, happens only when there's no gap, no contradiction between your highest inner truth and what you actually express.
So your words can't just describe your state. They have to be an integrated mirror of your divine intention.
Right. If you intend greatness but you speak smallness, you create conflict. Stagnation. No kingdom.
There's also that powerful analogy from the Book of Remembrance you mentioned about planting seeds.
Yes, that text really underscores the practical weight of this commitment. It says something like, your thoughts and words are the seeds you plant in the garden of your reality. Choose them wisely, for they will grow into your future.
Choose wisely. It makes every utterance feel incredibly significant. An act of creation.
It frames it as urgent stewardship. You are actively, intentionally manifesting your future with every single word. Each one is a seed.
Okay, but here's a practical challenge. This sounds, well, frankly, exhausting. Maintaining zero contradiction all the time. How do you avoid just drowning in self-judgment every time you slip up. That level of vigilance seems like it could be psychologically draining, almost counterproductive.
That's a really crucial point. And the sources seem to differentiate between discipline and judgment. Judgment paralyzes you,
Mm.
makes you feel bad, maybe give up. Discipline is about correction, getting back on track.
Okay.
And they are very clear about the immediate action needed if you do slip. If a word of doubt or negativity escapes, you can't just ignore it. Ignoring it in this framework means letting that negative seed get planted and start growing.
So you have to actively unsay it. What does that look like? If I catch myself saying, ugh, I always mess up these kinds of presentations, what's the immediate correction? What do I do?
The discipline requires, first, you immediately stop talking. Halt the speech. Then, take the anchor, that deep, centering breath. And then, crucially, you must immediately unsay them with greater conviction.
Where in your conviction?
Yes, reinforce your commitment to the higher version of yourself. It has to be a forceful, authoritative interruption of that negative narrative.
So for my example, I always mess up. I'd stop, breathe, and then say something like, wait, stop. That's not true. I am capable and I perform successfully. I choose to focus and excel right now. Something like that. A deliberate override.
Precisely that, a verbal override. That correction is framed as an act of spiritual discipline. It reinforces your authority over the narrative. It ensures the negative word you accidentally let slip is instantly nullified, overshadowed, dispelled by a word aligned with truth and purpose.
You're declaring your own divine power over that fleeting thought or habit.
Exactly. You're reminding yourself, and perhaps the universe, that you hold the ultimate authority over your reality, not some momentary lapse.
This has been quite the deep dive into the power packed into our speech and the sheer discipline this path demands. So to kind of wrap up the main takeaway from these sources, commitment, in this spiritual mastery sense, means being constantly vigilant, intentional, about every single thought and word you allow through.
Yes, aligning everything you are with your highest intention.
The rule seems simple on the surface, though obviously hard to master. If you speak, speak only the reality you want realized, nothing else.
And this whole process, this commitment to aligning your inner and outer worlds until negativity just doesn't have space to exist. It brings us back to that really powerful, kind of enigmatic phrase mentioned by Grandmaster Waxira. It asks you to completely rethink the nature of doubt and negativity once you achieve this mastery.
Right. What's the final provocative thought you want to leave our listeners with based on that phrase, especially as they try to apply this vigilance?
Ponder this maybe this week as you pay attention to your words. Whatever is dispelled by light never existed. Think about the implications. If your commitment is strong enough, if you instantly dispel every seed of doubt with the light of your focused, truthful word, these sources suggest that the negativity you just overcame, it was never truly real to begin with. It was just an absence of your authority, your light.
Wow.
So the question becomes, how many of your current fears or limitations are just, well, just waiting for you to authoritatively declare their non-existence?